Welcome back, everyone, to the Punk Rock Horror Podcast live show straight from Fort Collins, Colorado at Gorehound's Playground. I'm Matt.
I'm Cody.
Aaron / Paranormal Princess.
And today we are back again to remind you that it's getting a little spookier this season, it's getting a little colder, and we have hoodies and sweatshirts on our merch store to dress yourselves up in and stay warm with. They're really awesome, they're great, and it's a shameless plug, but tell you what, it's our show, so we can plug whatever we want. It feels good on the skin.
Mondays suck.
Mondays suck.
But not when you're wearing a Punk Rock Horror Podcast hoodie.
Exactly.
I feel dirty.
I mean, can we even go higher from that with this? So today we are talking about serial killers. We're continuing our discussion with that. We're going to be reviewing 3 movies for you this time to check out this weekend, and just in general, movies that really deserve that extra attention that maybe were overlooked or underappreciated, so on and so forth. But before jumping into that, we're going to jump into our segment, Something You Love and Something You Hate. On this segment, we talk about anything and everything about the world around us, and we take one thing that we love about it and one thing that we hate, whether it happened today, this past week, or this whole month. And it's just kind of a chance to relate. We'll bring some of the audience members in if they want to input on our opinions. If not, then... We'll just keep going with it. Especially you. That guy. He's a big mouth. Shout out to Carson Sukup, the host of Conspiracy Theater podcast. He's actually here supporting the show, so thank you, Carson, for coming out.
Yeah, Carson.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Man of many words. So, jumping into something we love and hate. So, for me, today, I am definitely going to say this, that the thing I love this week is that I'm just noticing that there's a huge acceptance and resurgence of really well-named and proclaimed horror coming out. Whether it's mainstream in the theaters or just still in the indie circuit in general, I feel like horror is now becoming more of a big name in the media circuit, and I love that because the reason we started this podcast was to make the case for horror, and especially underground indie horror, and we're seeing that in boatloads. I mean, with previous installments of like Get Out and Us and like The Conjuring, to more current ones like It 2 being released, and then Doctor Sleep, which we've mentioned on Monday's episode. It just makes me really kind of excited because it's like I feel that now we're going to start eventually seeing more nominations for Academy Awards and Oscars for horror films. And I love that because I firmly believe, although horror is a great place for shock and like fun times and in your face kind of like tongue-in-cheek stuff, it's also one that's really good for touching on serious issues and like good dramatic movies as well. And I'm excited, man. I'm excited that we're now going into a new climate of better horror, really.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know about getting any Academy Award or Oscar nods.
I'm gonna push for it, man.
If Joker doesn't get any, I don't think horror ever will. Because it literally took the death of Heath Ledger for anything outside of like drama movies to get a nod. So well, literally someone had to die.
Oscar movies do suck.
They do.
I don't know. What do you think, Aaron?
I don't see that happening personally. I mean, I'd be cool with it.
Yeah?
It's sort of like Twin Peaks Season 4. If it happens, that's awesome. But if it doesn't, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, now I'm starting to feel
I don't believe you. I know you're really not okay with it.
No, I actually am in like a weird way.
Okay.
Yeah, I came to accept the ending after a year. I'm like, I don't know if I can handle another ending.
What about our audience? Does anyone have any opinions on what I just mentioned? Does anyone agree or disagree with me on this who would like to stake their opinion for the record? Silence. Not everyone at once, by the way. Like, you're all too excited. It's okay. No one has to jump in on this.
Shape of Water won a bunch of Oscars.
True.
Yeah. Do you consider that a horror?
It's horror-inspired.
It is Guillermo del Toro.
Yes, it does have a monster in it.
Yeah. I guess I just didn't see it. I mean, like, I see what you mean. And that's, like, closer to getting, like, horror into there. But I always thought of it as a love story.
I think... Sorry.
I personally have to give him that because I did Colossal as a review on there. And that's not a horror movie whatsoever.
I would say Shape of Water goes more in that realm. One might argue that Shape of Water is a romantic horror. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and that's why Aaron's just like...
Man, it's a true monster.
Yeah, I don't like any romance in my horror.
It's just, I only want bloods and guts and bitches dying.
Yeah, I guess I can stop man hating now, but I can believe in romance again.
For me, what I hate this week, it actually came up on the drive up here with you, Aaron, because it was just like it brought me back through like a whole like disappointing like ride I went through with this movie I watched because I was really wanting it to be great. And it's horror as well, and I've talked about it before on the podcast, so hold it against me if you will. But it's The Nun. Like Jesus. Talk about like because when I was talking to Aaron about it, like I was reliving like my whole trauma of that movie of like just a really like, and I know this is like kind of like counterproductive because I'm like, oh man, horror's getting great.
And fuck this movie.
But The Nun, that shit. I just like talk about like a real waste of potential of a horror movie. Like I still have people like ask me like, is it worth it? And my answer still stands true. No, like The Nun was a shit movie. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
Like they're like the only good aspect about it is that you learn like where the nun comes from, and that's it. Like that is it. Everything else you could skip. Like
okay,
like very young Vera Farmiga is just like ghosts and like fucking scary house mansion whatever, and fucking movie ends. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just, and it just kind of really makes me mad because like they're trying to make the Conjuring universe this like horror universe, and you've brought it up before, like they're like how they're doing with the MCU and the monsters and the Godzilla universe. And it's just like, how are they going to make like a good universe of horror when they're shitting the bed with a lore like The Nun? Like, and it makes me so frustrated because like The Nun could have had this really convoluted, cool lore behind it that could have matched Pennywise, but because they did not execute it in a good way at all. It's just a real fucking shame, and it just makes me really mad that it's considered a horror film.
And Bonnie Aarons is amazing. She's such an amazing actress. They had such a good thing with her, and I haven't seen it, so I can't say. But from the sounds of it, they shit all over it.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Mainly just rehash the story of Freddy Krueger's mom. Done.
Yeah, I mean,
that's interesting.
I
haven't seen it, so that's like...
I know, I'm just saying, because Freddy Krueger's mom didn't go, like, all ape-shit murdery.
It's a very, like, Gene Keys, like, esque mummy shit the bed bride. I don't know. Just if you like the only way I would say that you should watch it is if like it's on network TV and like you just happen upon it and you need to kill some time, maybe do that.
Kind of like Schindler's List nowadays.
Yeah,
it's just there now.
It's just there.
When it came out, it was such a moving movie.
But the difference is that Schindler's List is good. So. Like that's the difference because I just really don't like The Nun. But that's what I love and hate this week. Cody, what do you love and hate?
Something I love has been working as a concierge for my new job, just because it's been really humbling seeing the residents that I've been working with. Like I've been working there for 6 years. And the residents don't really know me, like a couple of them do, and it's mostly because like I work in the kitchen, so like I can't really go out there and say hi. And this was before we had the bistro, and so working as concierge, just them saying like, "Oh, it's so good to see you again," or "Welcome back," and I'm like, "I've been here for 6 years, but thanks." It's like, I don't know where the welcome back's coming from, but it's just been really humbling because like they're all super excited to see me and talk to me and stuff. So that's been pretty nice, especially with a lot of like super crazy shit that's been going on with like me personally with all of my jobs.
Yeah, all the jobs.
And the thing I hate is the fact I have to have all of these jobs and start a new job as a concierge. It's like it's humbling and it's nice and I'm really enjoying it, but at the same time, like, what the fuck? Like, I have to have these just to like survive.
Right.
So I'm like, it's a headache, and it's just like really starting to take its toll on me lately. Like I just to get the like research in for this week was such a fucking struggle for me, and normally I'm like, yeah, enjoying it, but now I've just been like, all right, let's start by just pass out just because I've been so exhausted.
But you fucking did it because it's dedication, man. We talked about dedication on a recent episode.
When we were recording at 3 in the morning.
At 3 in the morning, because dedication's key.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I like how I'm just like, oh yeah, horror movies, and you're like, the economy.
Society. It creates the Joker if you haven't seen the new movie.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Is it?
Yeah, I liked it.
I heard it was alright.
It's good. It's really.
I've never seen a Marvel or DC movie. So.
You don't need any of those to understand this. It's it's straight up like watching a Martin Scorsese film.
And it's also better than The Nun.
Yes, it is.
To tie it in.
So I will say, even with the oversaturation of the Joker, definitely give this movie a watch. It's a really good take.
Yeah,
it's a really good take.
Yeah,
it makes you think. You feel bad. I felt terrible through the whole movie, and it was fantastic.
You're like, I'm a monster. I need to do more charity work.
The entire time I watched this movie, I'm just a piece of shit bitching about my things. This guy, fuck.
This guy.
He has problems.
Maybe I should develop a cocaine problem. I don't know.
Yeah.
What about you, Aaron?
Oh, let's see. I was sitting here thinking, I'm like, I can think of lots of things that I hate. But I'll start with what I love. I am totally obsessed with Midsommar.
I still need to see
Midsommar.
Midsommar.
All right, no spoilers here, because I really actually wasn't a fan of Hereditary. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody's going ape shit for that movie, and I didn't hate it, but I was sort of like, it fell short for me.
Real quick, Dad, remember how I told you my review of Midsommar is if you hated Hereditary, you're gonna fucking love Midsommar.
Yeah.
Case in point.
I've heard that a lot. Yeah. And Jesse, who's been on the show before, he did the Blue Room and all that. He used the word torture porn, which they kind of are in a way, because it's just full of trauma. But I feel like Midsommar was just so incredible. I ended up seeing it twice in theaters. Mm-hmm. I'm interested to see it on just a regular TV, because I feel like so much of why it was so incredible was the sound and the lighting, and it's so crazy. But yeah, so that's what I love.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I feel like everyone should give it a shot. It is a hard watch. It is definitely a hard watch.
That's how you know it's good.
Yeah.
When you're sitting the entire time, you're just like, oh, God, no. Oh.
Jaw on the ground, and you see full weenie. Full weenie.
Full weenie.
It's about time.
We are.
Full frontal weenie.
We are an explicit podcast. You could have gone with any word to describe the male genitalia, and you went weenie.
Some dick.
Some dick.
like any schlong.
Maybe I just like the word
schlong.
Weenie. Weenie roasting open in.
You could have even thrown in a hard C with cock, but no, we went weenie.
Is that like when you tell your boyfriend, give me that weenie?
Oh my God, I would literally never say that.
Now I just have that image of, the SpongeBob movie with Winnie Hut Jr. in my head.
Weenie Hut. But something I really freaking hate.
General.
Is it SpongeBob?
I love SpongeBob. Patrick is my spirit animal.
I'm a goober, yeah.
But I was going to say reboots, because I hate reboots. But you know what I hate more than reboots?
What?
Is when people take your favorite book series and buy the rights to make it into a movie and then shit all over it.
Oh.
They're turning Sandman Slim.
Really?
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I was hoping they'd make it an HBO series or Netflix or Hulu.
To tell you the truth, I don't know who bought it. Mm-hmm. I just know, and I don't know if Richard Kadri announced that, but a while back someone bought the rights to make a movie, and for me I hate it because it ruins everything that's in my head. And I have such a wonderful, I don't know, the Sandman Slim series, if you haven't read it, Richard Kadri, it's amazing. And so it's 12 or 10 books, and I just have this beautiful world built up in my head, and
it's fucking great.
Yeah,
I love that book series, and I'm so
Twin Peaks references galore.
The entire time I was reading the first 2 books, I was trying to imagine how it would look on the big screen or anything, and the only thing that worked was okay, just take Harry Potter and make it hardcore R, and that's the only way, really, of something, and it's terrible.
It's gonna be a bunch of CGI bullshit.
Yeah, because
that's what I hate. Don't ruin good books.
I just have to. Who would you have play him? Sandman?
I don't know, because whoever I have in my head is better than any bullshit actor out there.
For whatever reason, I always just picture Vin Diesel as him. I know it's terrible, but
God, God.
Just what he does there, like I'm just picturing like him or The Rock because they're like stacked.
Bruce Willis would be better than both of them.
My only worry is who they're going to get to play Spider-Man. That's all.
Well, everybody and their mom has played Spider-Man at this point.
Okay. I know. By the way,
So Tom Holland's finally getting his third movie. Okay, he's having his trilogy.
honestly, I was just trying to make a joke because you were talking about the Sandman, and I'm just like, haha, that's a Spider-Man villain.
I've never seen
That was a great joke.
And
I should have really.
The tonight is over.
Yeah, I mean, that is the peak.
There's lots of things to love and hate.
That's a.
So
Awesome.
that's what we love and hate this week. I mean, it's everything from the economy to horror movies to books. Does any of our audience want to jump in and give their opinions on what we talked about?
Or do you have something that awesome happened?
Can Full Weenie be a punk rock horror t-shirt?
Full Weenie's next T-shirt.
Oh my god! It has to
Cole
be like a
Johnson.
little like pop figure of Aaron roasting a weenie over a fire. Like those like ridiculous.
But like the weenie's got to be a punk rock weenie.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
itself, like that's gonna be
Mohawk on it?
great.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The
right.
weenie will have like a mohawk.
Yeah.
Vest.
Those are my favorite kind of weenie.
Wait, can it be a Johnsonville weenie?
It can be whatever you
cares
want
what
it
kind
to
of
be.
weenie it is?
Copyright. You can't do that.
An uncopyrighted weenie.
No, that's a. I think you meant Bronsonville. That is the difference.
You can't say
Onsonville.
Monson.
Johnsonville.
Monson.
I like how I'm
Yes.
like, we can't copyright, and I totally like name dropped SpongeBob and So,
What were you gonna say?
to add on to your guys' Academy Award thing, I mean, look at films like Jordan Peele's doing right now. There's a good chance that can get nominated. Us for sure.
Yeah.
And I think there could be a recurrence of, say, Silence of the Lambs coming here soon.
Oh god, I hope not.
That's perfect the way it is.
Anyone else? The floor is
Well,
open.
and then, as far as
No.
like getting another horror film actor, like
Leave the laptop alone, sir. Please.
This is a very well thought out lecture we're doing right now. It's like it's good structure.
It's done
going
nothing
on.
to you.
The more I attack your computer, the better.
It's done nothing to you.
Anyways, so if no one else would like to jump in, I think we can jump into our movie reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yas Queen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yas Queen. I went last week, so I'll go first this week, then I'll go Cody,
Okay.
and then our lovely paranormal princess. We'll round it out.
Recording out.
Sounds good,
Yeah,
yeah.
she
I don't
will.
have too much to say on this.
It's cool. It's cool.
It's fine.
We're talking about serial killers this week, and so I wanted to dive into one that was based on a lot of true events, and it's still like very terrifying to watch and very unsettling. What I decided to do was Wolf Creek, which came out in 2005.
You know, I hated this movie the first time I saw it.
Really?
So much.
Oh.
It made me mad the entire time. The entire time. I was just like,
We're gonna get into this.
shit. I liked it the second time.
Yeah.
Like I went back and
Takes-
rewatched it. I was like, yeah, it's alright.
It's a weird taste of a movie.
It is.
Wolf Creek is the story of three backpackers who are stranded in the Australian outback and are plunged into a hellish nightmare of insufferable torture by a sadistic, psychopathic local. Which, by the way, this is a family film. It's really like I've seen it on ABC Family a lot when that was a thing.
See family.
I know it's like freeform now.
Yeah, I show this movie every Christmas. Because
It
it came out on Christmas.
The new Disney original like series, Wolf Creek. They have like a talking parrot. It's awesome.
Yeah, stab her in the face.
That's my parrot sound. Directed by Greg
You
McLean.
should be disappointed.
I really
saw
am. That was like, why am I trying to save that? Directed by Greg McLean, written by Greg McLean as well. Stars John Jarrett. Is also starred by Cassandra McGrath, and is just a very unsettling movie throughout. Now,
That's how I want to be described from now on.
Unsettling?
No, well, that's Aaron. Gary.
Aaron, that's how you need to introduce the Paranormal Princess podcast from now on. Thank you for joining Paranormal Princess podcast. It's me, Aaron Gary. That'll be a
Some new
shirt.
listener's gonna get that and be like, "What have I walked into?"
this was a bad idea. So Wolf Creek, as the synopsis states, is about this crazy psychotic Australian man who is killing the shit out of people in the Australian outback. And that is like me kind of putting it in more of a true light because I still have hard feelings with IMDb. With that being said, we're talking about a fantastic of an intro with this type of movie. Now, with me, intros are a really big deal. I've made this known on the podcast. If it's a long intro where it's just only credits over like boring scenery, you have lost me. Like a minute-long intro of like who made the movie. Like I get it, you want them, you want them to have notoriety, but that's why credits are also at the end of the movie. But I always give credit to a movie that does great intros. Now, my favorite has always been Ginger. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was
no,
going
it's
to say,
okay.
You would have hated watching movies when they first came out because the credits were in the beginning.
Dude, I'm just glad. I'm just glad that when movies came out, I wasn't alive yet. So I mean,
because they don't like 10-minute intros.
Like I still don't understand people who are like, "Oh, dude, I wish we still lived in the '60s." I'm like, go fuck yourself.
Like, you know why they say that? Because they're white.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm half brown, so like I have like stand like a 50% chance of making it then. So like, I mean, like nice for you to say that. So anyways, the intro of Wolf Creek is really great. So we're following these three backpackers who go from partying, at like what would be like an apartment motel kind of area. They're like jumping into the pool, which by the way, I've kind of noticed with a lot of these like movies that are set like that came out in like 2000s to like early 2010s, that for some reason whenever there's like a party, especially 90s movies, whenever there's like a party, like everybody kind of like loses their shit when someone jumps in the pool. And like I never kind of really understood that, where it's like that's the height of the party is the pool. Like if that was the height, why don't you just jump in the pool at the beginning of the movie? And by the way, I'm aware this is a really weird critique I'm making about a horror movie.
Foreplay.
But
yeah, that's what it is.
Again, like if you want to,
they're like, oh, the girl jumped in the pool. That means we're all about to get half naked.
Yeah, but that's not what I mean.
We're all drunk to make those bad decisions.
In this situation, like the protagonist, that's a guy, just like jumps in. He's like, ha like party, like and whatnot, and everybody's like, oh my god, he jumped in the pool with his clothes on. This party is lit.
He's an attention whore. That's all it is.
I guess so.
Well, you can't do that nowadays because we're like, oh, he jumped in with his clothes on. How is he going to call his mother?
Oh my god, what a crazy guy, right? And I don't know, I just always thought that was just kind of like a weird thing. Like I it's the dumbest thing I can make about this movie as a critique. But then again, I've also complained about the protagonist's sweater in Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
A little too much there.
I love that.
It's just a sweater.
It was an ugly sweater.
It's just a pool.
Sweater.
But it wasn't like an ironically like ugly sweater. It was just a fucking ugly sweater. So I mean, going forward, it's just I don't know why, man. It's just like pool, fucking whatever.
Digging the German there, sir.
Thank you. Fantastic intro. After that, they kind of get on the road, and as they're driving by, like there's this like beautiful landscape out the Australian outback, and I actually appreciated it because that's how they intro the movie. It says Wolf Creek because it starts. The beginning of the movie is them showing their friendship, partying, and then when it introduces the title as Wolf Creek, that's where the movie is supposed to begin. Is their trip. And so we see this beautiful like Australian outback. We get used to the setting, and what's really great about it is that it's kind of showing you that these protagonists are isolated and alone. It's just the three of them in this car, and they can only count on each other. And it
is the outback.
It is the outback. I mean, next to a few dingoes and a few black mambas, there's not much else life going around out there.
Well, I'm just saying, like literally everything out there wants to kill you.
Yeah, especially crazy like white dudes.
Yeah.
I don't know what's scarier, like crazy white dudes or the spiders, man. I'll take my chances with the white dude.
I would say the white dude.
Spiders.
The white dude. Well,
spiders
spiders are doing it just because they're spiders. Like, they know what they're doing. The white dude's doing it because he's crazy psychotic and gets a weird fetish out of it. So, I mean...
I thought it was just because of his mustache.
It's definitely because of the mustache. Never trust people with mustaches. That's what everyone always says.
The Lemmy thing going on.
That don't you dare disregard his
I'm
name.
just saying he has the I think
the only thing that Lemmy ever killed was my sadness. So that, yeah. So we're introduced to these characters who are like quirky and fun, and like, oh my god, they're going to walk on trails because no group of three white friends have ever walked on a trail before in a horror movie. So okay, I'll stop.
Oh, the douchebag's got a guitar too. Really,
he's actually really nice.
Yeah,
he's actually like.
That makes it worse.
That makes it worse that he's nice.
When he sings Wonderwall, he really means you're his Wonderwall.
You know what I would do to that wall?
When he says that today's going to be the day,
all over it.
when he tells you that the day is going to be the day that they throw it right back to you, he means you. Bide how you really realize what you got to do.
I'm drying up like the Sahara.
I don't believe that anybody. But, well, guess what? There's a lot of sand in this movie because it's mostly like what could be considered the desert. So you're welcome. So that being said, it does this really great job at making you feel isolated and vulnerable. And the way it does this is that eventually the car that they buy, which, by the way, I'm making this as a con as well. So the guy, you're going to hate him more now for this. The dude buys this really shitty car for like, I don't know, like $1,500. Like, and like it needs like to actually be worked on before he can take it out. Like, legitimately, like it can't start. And so, like, I mean, start of, like, mistakes that you would make in a horror movie if you're going to die.
Oh, the car takes, like, 3 times to start the car? Let's go on a cross-country road trip through the Outback.
It takes 3 times to start it, a voodoo sacrifice,
okay.
And, like, it's the whole deal, dude.
Okay.
Like, that's what you get with Fords.
That's why his girlfriend was like, why are there so many goats in the back?
What's actually funny is that he's driving a Ford. In the movie, it's a fucking Ford. Of course, it's a Ford car that gives out on him, right?
Snapchat.
It's fucking yeah, because we're sponsored by Dodge. So eventually, the car, like I said, they get to where they're going, and the car just gives out on them. It won't start. They don't know what's going on, and then this creepy dude drives up with his truck out of nowhere. To offer help, and we're then introduced into the villain named Mick. Mick is a psychotic killer that we're being warned about.
Mick.
It is Mick. Mick is a dick. I'm going to tell you that right now. And also, by the way,
so was Rihanna. Apparently.
By the way, I'm gonna tell everyone by now because our audio listeners can't see it. We're going through some slides of some pictures, and there's advertisements. So I'm really sorry to the audience if that throws off like the atmosphere at all, because it's like
Rihanna was actually in this movie. She's Mick.
Yeah, she's Mick. So anyways, Mick comes in and is offering his help and is very creepy. Like, and I know that's a very generic way to explain him, but it's true because the way he moves, the way he talks, it's very intimidating, and it's a very creepy way he talks, and he immediately puts you into an uncomfortable feeling as soon as you're introduced to the character. With that being said, he basically hunts down these, teenagers, and he brings them back to where he's staying, allegedly, on the idea he's going to help fix their car up, and then they would be on their way.
Yeah.
And so that's the promise he lures them
with.
with.
Right there.
I'm trying not to burp. So he's trying to lure them in that way, right? And so eventually they agree to his offer. They go back to Mick's, where he's staying. Which, by the way, the reason I did that with air quotes that no one could see on the audio is that when it comes to serial killers, they usually have a place where they kill people that's separate from their homes a lot of times. Usually. So that's why I'm doing with quotes, because there's no real way to indicate that this is where he lives. This is just where he kills people. So eventually, they're all talking, and you learn more about Nick. You learn that Mick was a war vet. He fought in Vietnam, and he talks about some like these gruesome hunts he's gone on. He mentions one specific where, like, hunting boars in Australia, you have to use dogs to hunt down the boar and then come up on the boar from behind and like stab it in the gut. And like he gets very like descriptive with how he talks about it, kind of like peeking into his psychotic nature and mindset.
Yeah.
And so, like, again, he continues to deliver on a very unsettling like performance. Like, I loved that about this character. Like, he just made me so like uncomfortable the entire time. A lot like resembling like Patrick Bateman with in American Psycho.
Yeah.
Calm down now.
Movie Patrick Bateman.
Book no.
No, he's
a monster.
Yeah.
He's a monster.
Movie Patrick Bateman though.
Yeah. So that being said, eventually all the teenagers pass out, and then we're waking up to a scene where Liz is waking up, bound in what is, zip ties. Mm-hmm. And so she's trying to break out of them. And another pro I'm going to put out is, like, Liz is smart. Kind of. Like, for the most part, she's smart for acting, like, because, I made it a pro because I got to think about it like this. Like, if you were just, like, randomly kidnapped and then, like, tied up and then, like, you didn't know where you were, like, what would you do, right? So, like, she thought on her feet really well, but it was still kind of, there's some decisions that she made that I feel like if you were in that situation, it'd be easier to know what to do. Mm-hmm. And I'll get more, I'll explain more as I go on. So anyways, Liz wakes up, she finds a bloody sleeping bag that her friends were, staying warm in, and so she obviously is like realizing some shit's going down, and so she hears screaming coming from the shed. So she runs to the shed and she sees her other friend who is tied up and is basically like being tortured by Mick. And Mick, there's just this really unsettling scene where Mick is loading his rifle and like pointing it at her and like pretending to like getting ready to shoot her, and he just keeps fucking with her the entire time, and it's so like unnerving because it's just he's doing this really good job of playing this psychopathic killer. And so she's freaking out. Liz sees a chance to save her. Eventually she goes into the shed, and this isn't a spoiler, so bear with me. She eventually gets the one up on Mick and shoots him in the neck. And I was glad about that, because it's definitely that situation where he's looking at her and he's just like, go ahead, pull the fucking gun. I know you won't, kind of thing.
And they never do.
But she does.
Good for this bitch.
And so I'm just like, yes, thank you. And like what prior happened to this that I also really liked is that she had, because she escaped her bindings, she found her shoes and put her shoes back on. She had running shoes. And I'm so happy about that, because I've seen so many horror movies where our female...
3-inch heels when they're wearing jeans,
or they just run in their bare feet, and I'm just like, just steal some shoes. Like, if you have the chance, go for it. And so she does, and so she's smart, right? Shoots Mick in the neck. Mick collapses because of the shock, and keeping in mind she's in a shed filled with like blunt objects, chains, sharp things, a lot of things that you could kill people with. Her friend who's bound and gagged is telling her to kill him, and so she can't reload the rifle because she's panicking. So she instead of grabbing anything else or even using the rifle as, a club, just kind of hits him on the back like 3 times and then lets her friend go. And I'm like, Liz, you're kind of smart for a second there. Like, why you always kill? Always go for the kill. Like, anyone who's seen Zombieland knows double tap. And it's just like, it just like really bummed the shit out of me, because I'm like, god damn it, Liz. And so what ends up happening is she gets her friend and they steal his truck. And this is another situation where, like, instead of just starting the car immediately and going, she freaks out and stalls to watch Mick standing up to aim a double barrel shotgun at her. And I'm like, this is the exact moment where you want to drive the car, not just stare at the guy, see if he's going to shoot you.
Yeah.
Because he will.
Yeah, and so, like, this is what I mean. Like, there's just some situations with Liz that I'm like, you're smart for the most part, but you're making me really hate you right now.
But would there be horror movies if people were just smart? It's sort of like if there was that noise in the kitchen and someone's just like, you know what? I'm going to leave.
Right.
There'd be no movie. So you got to have someone to be dumb.
Except, I guess except for funny games, yeah.
I haven't seen that
but that's what I mean. Like,
it's hard.
like pick a lane. Like, if you're going to make her smart, like, make her smart and then make the bad guy even smarter. You know?
She's drunk driving in both lanes. Yeah.
It happens. One too many White Claws. White Claw, summer 2019, baby.
No, but I get what you mean. Like, but in a way, isn't that kind of a good thing? That, like, you kind of get this, like, hope for her, and then it's just sort of like, oh, shit. Oh, but maybe no, because it kind of keeps you on that, like, wave.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, like, when the killer's on the ground capacitated, like, I would, like, take the brunt of, like, that gun and just, like, go to town on his...
Chop his head off or
something.
Yeah,
like, I mean, there's a lot of ways she could have killed him. Yeah. And then, like, and I get it.
She had shoes on, just stomp his head in.
And I get it. Like, we wouldn't have a horror movie at that point. But, like, when there's such an obvious, like, plot hole right there, it just bugs me.
But you also, none of us have been in that situation. And when you're in that panic mode, like, we all like to think, like, oh, sure, I'd run into that burning building and save the child. But you know, you might run just out of pure fear. Like, you just don't know how you'll react until you're there.
Yeah. So with that being said, they drive off, and she gets really smart about trying to elude him. And I don't want to keep giving away all the things she's doing, because I am trying to make the case for this movie. And so eventually what ends up happening is that we find our the other teammate who ends up, you know, being nailed to a cross in a literal fashion. And so he's, you know, in the scene where he's like pulling his, you know, hands off of like the nails.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's a practical effects moment, and I love it for that aspect, because aside from like the beautiful scenery and like the well thought out writing for Liz, besides a few key choices, like, it's just like the fact that they still pay time and attention to like doing practical effects and making very unsettling blood effects. Like, I love that. And so like on a buckets of gore rating, I would definitely give it at least like a solid 3.5 out of 5, because there isn't a huge amount of gore in it at all, but for what there is, like, they do sell on it really well. It's definitely no CGI. All of it's real. Well, I mean, real. All of it's...
No, it's real. They really killed those people.
Liz has retired from acting.
They're dead.
Permanently. But, like, with that being said, you know, we're seeing these people try to survive this chaotic, crazy man who just wants to kill the shit out of them. And it's, like, really unsettling, because it's like, the three of them could definitely, like, overthrow this guy. But he was really smart and strategic at separating them and tying them up separately, and just kind of, like...
Where does the douchebag with the guitar come into all this?
That's the guy who was nailed to a cross.
He's crucified.
Oh.
I just didn't want to call him the douchebag with the guitar, because I like him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, a very nice young man with a guitar.
He was crucified.
He was crucified for his sins.
But is there full weenie?
Is there full weenie?
There's no full weenie.
I wasn't really looking for weenie, so.
Sucks to suck.
So that was the thing that would have sold this movie. Full weenie.
Full weenie.
Full Mick weenie. Full Mick Australian
McDonald's
weenie.
new sandwich.
That's the weenie you'll see.
McWeenies.
McWeenies.
That's Mick.
That's Mick. Yeah, he's the weenie. He looks like it's not the most graceful screenshot of him.
How's it going, buddy?
I'm a serial killer.
I take it back. I don't want full weenie.
Strictly a non-weenie person at this point.
Harrison, you like to eat ass, okay? We know.
And so, like, my other biggest con that I'm going to throw out against this movie real quick is that
Stewart?
It's definitely not Kristen Stewart.
No.
I would have told you it was Kristen Stewart.
But I definitely wouldn't watch the movie.
Yeah. I actually thought she looked more like a younger Keira Knightley, which is a weird thing to say, but that's how I took it.
I don't have my glasses.
Oh,
that's
okay.
It's literally right there.
I know. I don't know how much closer we could get you to the screen.
Tisha.
But one of the other biggest cons is that I have with this movie is that the kids are pretty dumb with not questioning the strange man's motives, which is Mick. So we find out, like, earlier in the movie when their car breaks down, that Mick supposedly lives like an hour away from where he, lives, and just happens upon this one car that's broken down. And it's the only car that's broken down. And at no point did the three of these kids ever say, hey, why would he just be an hour out away? Like, if he was already headed, because in the story, like, he's already headed home. Mm-hmm. But why would he, like, extend his time just for one person? And I get it. It's supposed to be like, oh, people in the Outback are supposed to be nice.
Not everyone's evil.
Yeah, but the fact that he's going that far out of his way gets really concerning, because when he's taking them to his, again, quote-unquote, home, it ends up being more than an hour ride. Mm-hmm. And at no point does anyone ever be like, I think we should jump out.
A little suspicious.
Right, and that's kind of what I mean. No one questions his motives at all. Like, even at the campfire, like, someone could have, like, brought up, like, that was a longer drive than we thought. And maybe, like, if that's an issue to bring up with Mick all of a sudden. But, like...
Not everyone's as paranoid as us, Matt.
Well, and now, like, fucking, their bodies are proof of that. Like, call me paranoid, but at least I'm alive.
He's not a douchebag. He cares. It's sensual kissing.
That's actually not his girlfriend.
Never mind. He's a douchebag.
Definitely a douchebag.
So I mean, it's. I know it sounds like I'm throwing out really big cons against this movie, but just because I want to paint an honest picture of it, it's still like a fantastic movie based on like true events. Like has one of the most terrifying villains I've seen in a long time that is still very unsettling. Mick is just a scary person to look at. He's scary to like hear talk in general. I mean,
you need to watch it.
It's a good movie, and if you wanted to watch it, if you want to rent it right now, it's on Amazon Prime for $3.99. I strongly recommend it, especially like if you are into serial killers, and you love these type of movies or slasher flicks. Like this is definitely a step up from Halloween on an intense level, and it came out during a time where like horror wasn't at its best, and it was mostly doing good in the indie scene. Yeah. And this is one of those movies that is indie. It deserves a little more love. It deserves a lot more attention, and it deserves your attention today. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and jump into my quick few trivia facts about the film, and then we're going to jump into Cody's interesting side of his movie. So, any questions so far, though?
Any questions about the movie? Yeah.
Thank God, because I was not prepared.
I know. I was wondering why you said any questions. I was like, questions about what?
So,
it's your review.
Yeah, I know. It was just... trivia about the movie.
On the spot there.
I know. I was like, please don't ask anything. Like, I don't know what to respond with. Where's this movie set? Australia.
Just like the Outback.
The Outback. Outback. Everybody equates the Outback with France. So a few interesting facts. Unbeknown to the crew, the abandoned mine where they chose to film had actually been the site of a real-life murder of a woman. The filming prompted a protest from locals who are honestly...
Locals? You said locos.
Locals,
like crazy people.
Locos, cerveza, thought the film was about those events. Hey, yo, why could be loco? Hey, gringo.
God damn it.
A very eerie coincidence occurred for the second unit crew sent out to get footage of the Wolf Creek crater. Since location was many hours from any town, the small crew decided to camp out in their car at the site after shooting. During the night, a mysterious stranger showed up in a truck to investigate. The stranger indeed looked very much like the character of Mick Taylor, right down to the rustic truck. The stranger left, but the crew was so spooked that they drove an hour down the road before finally stopping to camp for the night. And I think spooked is like really underplaying that.
Yeah, seriously. They probably were like, oh my God, it's him. One of them literally shit their pants. Bet money. One of them shit their pants.
Yeah, just like literal brown snail trail.
Yeah, that's why the stranger left. He was like, oh, it's a good... Oh, God.
Or he just followed the shit trail.
Just followed the shit trail. I mean, that's what I got about fucking Wolf Creek. I love the shit out of that movie. They have a series now on Shudder. I haven't watched it yet, but Shudder usually has like a pretty solid like rating with horror movies.
Yeah. Is it worth getting? Is it worth a subscription?
Shudder? Oh, God, yeah.
Shudder, yes.
Totally. If you, I will always say that, like, in hopes that Shudder will eventually sponsor us. Shout out. If you are a diehard horror fan in any sort of the sense, Shudder is a must-have subscription. Like, I found so many good movies on there that are just worth your time. I mean, pick a random one and you're going to be in for a treat. I haven't had a dud yet, but I mean, I'll let you know when that happens.
Sweet.
So, all right, Cody, what are you doing this week?
So, I believe this is our first TV movie that we've done on the podcast.
No, it's not. No,
what was the other TV movie?
I feel like Frailty was a TV movie.
I don't think that one was.
I swear to God, we had one. I
don't know. Anyways, so I gotta give you a little context here before I go over my movie. I did my movie on Citizen X, and it is about the Red Ripper, the Rostov Ripper, or the Butcher of Rostov, Andrei Chikatilo. So he's not a very well known murderer out here, but I just want to give a little context about him, just a little quick life story about this guy, because this whole movie is basically all about the investigation of catching him. But Andrei Chikatilo, aka the Red Ripper, Rostov Ripper, Butcher of Rostov, killed at least 52 boys, girls, and young women. He was a career teacher and wrestling coach to young girls. He then worked as a communication engineer, which helped him find his victims at train stations, because he had to travel all across Russia.
Right.
And so it was just really easy for him to grab his victim and then do his thing, and no one would be the wiser because he's always moving around. So there was never any like real way to get him at the time. He would offer his victims vodka and walk away with them into the forest to commit his murders. The whole reason why he started on all of this is because he suffered from a condition that caused him to be constantly flaccid. He could never, ever have an erection. Yeah.
Tie a popsicle stick to it or something.
So
talk about a hard time.
But that's actually what caused his sexual frustration that led to his sexual sadomasochistic nature. Because it was all out of sexual frustration. All the young women that he would kill, the only way he could get off is by wrestling to the ground. Hence why he started coaching young girls wrestling, was because he could have wrestled to the ground. That was the only way he could get off. And then it slowly built to he choked them to killing them.
Huh.
Yep. And,
that took a real hard left.
Yeah, I know. He was arrested twice during the investigation. He was let go the first time because this. So when he did all this, it was during when communism was huge in Russia during the Soviet Union, and he was actually considered in high regards to communism and in Soviet Russia. So the heads of the government, like the head government of Rostov, were like, what the fuck? When the investigating detective picked him up, he's like, this guy has all the proof in the world that he's the killer. And the higher ups are like, no, get rid of all that and let him go. He's good. He's fine. He's providing to communism. So they could have killed him after his 10th victim. They could have got him, but they let him go because he was high in communism. And then after he was arrested for the second time, he was convicted for 52 of the 56 murders that he confessed to, and he was sentenced to death by firing squad, which was carried out on February 14th, 1994. So Citizen X is a made-for-TV movie. Coming from, I believe it's BBC made this movie, and it's really good. I didn't even know it was a made for TV movie. But it's a quick synopsis. During the 1980s, Soviet authorities hunt for a serial killer who picks his victims in railway stations and commuter trains and lures them into the woods. It is directed by Chris Gerolmo. It was based off a play or a book written by Robert Cullen. The movie was written by Chris Gerolmo. It stars Stephen Ray, Donald Sutherland, and Max von Sydow. Sorry, Donald Sutherland is a great fucking actor. And so when I saw him that he was in it, I was like, yes! So the movie does have a kind of long opening with credits
Sorry,
and
Matt.
stuff like that.
Am I gonna hate it?
Maybe.
Y'all know
maybe.
what fast forward is.
Yeah, I
but
know what
sometimes
fast
there's
forward
things that
is.
happen. Sometimes there's
I'm
things
not a
that happen.
fucking idiot.
So how the credits go is it shows the credits over the woods, where he takes his victims and stuff like that. But then literally right when the credits end, it just looks down because the tractor goes by and you just see the dead body of a little girl underneath, that was buried up where the tractor was driving. So I thought that was actually kind of a decent opening because then it just goes straight to the lead detective who's going to be put on this case. And it also shows just how fucking terrible the police force was back then. In Soviet Russia, the police force was so corrupt and shady, they literally didn't want to do their job whatsoever. They are just give me money and I'll look the other direction. If someone was like, hey, this dude just fucking punched me in the face, whatever, I don't give a shit. I'll punch you in the face. Get away from me. That's literally how the police was. So this is our lead detective of the movie. He actually, when he tells them to go out, he tells the the police chief, he's like, look, I need more than just the body. Did you find anything around the body? Did you do your job? Because all they brought back was here's a dead girl. That's all they told him. And
everybody knows that the police can find a killer just off a body.
And the police officer was like, what? And he was like, did you look around the body, around the woods or anything? And he's like, no, if I saw something, I would have brought it to you. He's like, go fucking look. So they look and find 8 more bodies. Like, this is all in the first 10 minutes of this movie, and it gets great. Wow. But then they show the very first murder, and they show it all, like this little girl getting murdered, but I couldn't help but laugh because of how 1995 it was. So the filming of all of it, like, it just shows the camera like run up to behind the little girl, then it shows her like with her arms up, like in the arms of an angel as she hits, and then you just see him like going crazy with the knife, but it's almost like you can tell the knife is CGI'd in his hand.
Oh no!
So it's just this dude like pounding this little girl's chest.
Wait,
coming out.
A TV horror movie had enough in the budget for a CGI knife.
Yeah, but
God forbid a practical one.
In my head, I was like, this would have been better if they showed how they do the rest of the murders through this movie. So how they do the rest of the murders, it literally shows his interaction with the kid, or the lady, or the kid or the young lady, and then it just shows them falling back with like blood on their face. Like, it just shows their dying head like hit the ground. That's it. It doesn't show how he kills them and stuff. It does like one more like that.
Yeah.
Or it shows, because he was also one of his victims, and they talk about it in the movie, he actually bit the private parts off. And they talk about that, and it's like, nice. And so it shows the blood all over his face from that one. Yeah, that's what I mean. Is like, if the first murder didn't show in this movie, the rest of it would have been, and showed it just like that, would have been fine. So that's my biggest con. Otherwise, this is a great fucking movie if you like true crime, mystery, especially going into this movie knowing how this turns out. I was like, every time they talk to the lead police chiefs or whatever, or the main detective talked to like the police chief, and like, this is what I need, this is what I need to get done. They're like, no, like every time, because in Soviet Russia, if you said you needed help from something, because he was like, I need to talk to the FBI, because this is when Mindhunters and like just got their own division, the serial killer division. He's like, I need to talk to them. We need computers, and I need more men to find this. And they're always telling him no. And so I was just like, I'm sitting there like, are you fucking kidding me? Your children are dying. Like, he's like, this. At that point, they found 20 bodies. So they're like, your children are dying by one man, and you're not going to say, all right, yeah, fuck it, we'll need help. No, they're like, he has to also work undercover on this case.
I mean, Cody, in Russia, you don't find serial killer find you.
I know. And so one thing I did like about the movie, but I know some people aren't going to like, is they switch between the detective and then Andre Chikatilo during this entire investigation. So it switches between the detective like making his case of why he needs more stuff, and then it switches to showing Chikatilo kill another person. And I kind of like that. I liked it because
perspectives.
It gave me perspective, and it keeps the timeline. That's how you keep the timeline in this movie, because sometimes you're like, wait, this is 6 months later, and it never says it. Like, right. It does it to show the timelines, which I liked. Another thing that I liked about this movie is that it really shone the light on like the disdain on the LGBTQ community too in Russia, because the second they're like, oh, there's little boys dying, so it must be a homosexual. And so they were arresting any single gay person they could find throughout this movie. And like,
did that happen? Is that pretty accurate?
Yep, that is extremely accurate. That's what I mean. This movie's actually really accurate to the tale, like to Andre Chikatilo's.
It's not too like sensationalized.
Mm-mm.
That's interesting.
And they never like romanticize Chikatilo either. He's like, because in reality he's this gross looking, skinny, scrawny guy. Yeah. And in this movie they got the perfect actor. Like we've already seen it a couple of times. He does. He looks like you're like, you make me uncomfortable just by looking at you, like type of thing.
He's a good actor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so they show the first time Chikatilo gets arrested, because the main detective like puts 2 and 2 together. He sees them talking to 3. He like, because the main detective, he figures out it's in a train station. That's the only way. And then he sits and he's just watching. He sees Andre Chikatilo go to 3 separate people, offering them vodka or talking to them because they look like they're down on their luck. They're young kids, or like they look like they're prostitutes. And so then he gets up and talks to them, brings them in. He opens his bag, sees the knife and the ropes and everything that in his bag, his kill bag. And he brings him in, and that's when the higher ups were like, no, he works for. This is when he was working in communication engineer And like, he does good for communism, let him go. So I thought that was really cool that they actually showed that and had that in there. This part, I thought it was great. It was it's one of those moments in movies where like someone stands up to the higher ups who are being assholes, and you're just like, yeah, fuck that old guy. So
especially old people.
Yep. So the colonel who's helping the detective find Andre Chikatilo, he goes in to the general and he goes, we're not, and the general's like, we need to replace that guy. That dude's a bitch, because he finally broke down in front of all of them when he's like, I need men, I need resources, and you're not giving me it. And they're like, oh, well, you're a man, fucking deal with it. And he breaks down and they're just harassing him. So the general comes in and the colonel comes in, looks at the general, and he's like, so I have proof that you're fucking a 19-year-old boy. And we don't want your wife to know this. This is why he was hard on the LGBTQ community. And it shows the corruption about that when people are closeted, like all of that kind of stuff. And just like throwing it out there. I was just like, yeah, fuck that old guy, you son of a bitch. I'm glad he's gone. So I was not able to finish the movie, but I'm at where they finally figured out is Andre Chikatilo. And the way they did it, it's just this whole story is so crazy, because the way they find him, and it happened in real life, is this so back-asswards way. So they post up undercover police officers at all these train stations. This is also in the movie, and I thought, and this is one of my favorite parts, is this police officer's like, I've been working here for 36 days, motherfuckers. I need rest. And he hands him like this thick stack.
Vodka?
Yep. And he's like, I need rest. I miss my family. Because what they were doing is they told the entire police force, you see anyone talking to anybody, you fucking get their information, get their ID cards, get everything. Like, they didn't give a shit. And so this guy, he was just like, I've been here for 36 hours. And they're like, holy shit, that's why your thing's so thick? And he's like, yes, because no one came to relieve me. I want to go home. And so then the colonel, he looks at this paper and goes, this guy came here? And he's like, yes. And he's like, you wrote this and you saw him? Why? And he's like, because he came out of the woods with dirt all over him. He was dressed really nice, like a communications engineer. And he was dressed really nice, but he had dirt on him. I didn't understand why he came from the woods. And he goes, Andre Chikatilo. And that's how they found him, because he got busted by a random tired-ass police officer who's been working 36 straight hours. It was just like, I found that guy because he came out of the woods, and I was just like, that doesn't look right. You don't look like a lumberjack.
Suspicious.
Right.
Yeah, and so then they busted him, and they interrogated him, and he finally admitted everything. He said he killed 56, but they could only prove 52.
Oh, yeah. Shit.
So I don't know how the movie ends, and one of the because I stopped at that scene just because I'd had a hard time trying to watch the movie. But what I say also, one of the best lines I've ever heard out of any true crime serial killer or horror movie: suffering over all of these suffering over all these horrors is what makes us humans. Because if we didn't suffer over them, we'd be monsters ourselves. And I was like, holy shit, because that shows empathy's a great thing to have.
I like how their method to catch them was just like, all right, we're going to be super lazy, and I just want you to sit here.
Yeah, no, so
and you're only going to sit here for 8 hours, I promise. Nothing more than that.
Well, what happened with him, so the crazy thing is, because how that happened is because the fall of the Soviet Union, and then Russia asking for America's aid in more democratic ways.
Yeah.
That's what helped this case, is because if that didn't happen, they would have never caught Chikatilo, because they would have never got the manpower. And so since they started taking a more democratic view, the colonel got promoted to... Sorry, no, he was a general, got promoted to colonel. And then he was like, what? And he looked to his detective, and he's like, what do you need? You got it. And then he gave him everything he needed to find him. They did exactly what the detective has been saying from the beginning of how to catch him, and they fucking caught him.
And everybody knows when you become a colonel, you get your own chicken restaurant.
Yeah, I know.
So it works.
Besides the ending, because like I said, I haven't finished this movie, I would highly recommend it. It's free on Amazon Prime right now, and it's a great movie. It's really good. I was intrigued during the entire time, especially for a 1995 made-for-TV movie. Like, they did such a great job with it. Storytelling is fantastic. It moves right along. I never felt like it got super slow. And you hate the right people. You like the right people. That's one thing that I really liked about this movie, especially with a corrupt government. Like, about a corrupt government trying to catch a serial killer. It's like, evil trying to catch evil doesn't happen. And like,
that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. and blood-wise, about 2.5, because it's like, even though it's just little amounts of blood, when it's there, it's like it's supposed to just have effect. It's not supposed to be like, yeah, gore, blood, blah. It's supposed to be like, I hate myself for watching this. Because like there's a scene where, like I said, when Chikatilo bites the dick off a person, he's just raising his face and there's just blood all over his face because he ate people too. That like it was very unsettling, but that's about as much as the blood that they needed for this movie. So highly recommend watching Citizen X. And also, if you want a really good telling of Andre Chikatilo, really in-depth telling of his story and how he got caught and his entire past, I would say go to Time Suck by Dan Cummins and listen to his episode on there, because it is great. And that's also where we got What This Big Deal was from his podcast.
What this big deal?
Because
like Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah, what this big deal? I only have shank God. Get this big deal. Come on, we wrestle for it.
come on, we wrestle.
That's what he does.
You want vodka, you want that. I mean, you want live.
Yeah. So, and I also like this movie because it shows the ending and the death of a fucking terrible, terrible human being. So, happy ending. He's dead.
Yay! Woo, the bad guy died. Yeah, the bad guy in mine is still said to be alive.
Yep.
Yeah, like the actual real events. Like the killer is supposed to still be alive in the Australian outback. So more reasons why I'm not moving to Australia.
So, couple fun
accents only go
facts.
so far when death is everywhere.
We're all gonna die sometime.
I guess that's a fair way to look at it.
A couple fun facts about it. The movie Child 44, 2015, is based on the same events, all bet from a fictionalized account published in 2008. So don't see Child 44 if you want to learn about Chikatilo. Okay, the characters of Fedosov and Budakov were both real people who investigated the actual Chikatilo killings. Yet their ranks and positions were changed in the movie. Historically, Major Mikhail Fedosov was sent from Moscow in order to investigate the killings. In the film, he is already in Rostov as a colonel heading the militia, while Viktor Budakov was a civilian forensic expert. In the film, he is a police lieutenant assigned by Fedosov, Jesus Christ, I keep saying that. Festive. I just want to be festive.
I'm expecting you to say feta cheese at some point.
To head the investigation. There was no central committee comprised of Communist Party and KGB men above the two. So in reality, it was always just those two, for the most part. This was a plot device created for the film to show Soviet bureaucratic methods, and the main reason why the case took so long was that the investigators interviewed over 150,000 people trying to narrow down the killer could be. The mistaken release of Chikatilo and the botched blood semen test was accurate as it occurred in the investigation. So one of the things that they kept trying to tie to him is the semen found on the bodies was AB, but his blood test only came back A, and no one realized that those can actually be tested as two separate things. Your DNA comes out as two separate ways. Yeah. Your semen's not the same as blood.
Yeah, that's kind of threw me off this thing. I was like,
that's basically what they're saying.
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, no. So they thought because it comes from you, it's going to be the same blood type, and it's not, because it's not blood.
First, I was like, I didn't even know like semen had a type. I thought it was just like kind of the same across the board. I mean, besides like the minute like differences for each person. But I didn't know it was something like, oh yeah, you have O negative semen.
This is the fun thing. Let's go back from the semen talk. The Japanese inquired about buying Andre Chikatilo's brain after he was shot by the firing squad.
And who else but the Japanese would do that?
Germans.
Oh yeah. Why? Why would the Germans?
Germans are always evil scientists.
Talking about stigmas.
I have to live with that stigma.
Like, I know I kind of like that's hypocritical because I'm like, of course the Japanese, but I mean.
Get out.
All right. What's your pick to round it out?
Well, mine's short and sweet because, like I said, I'm not super into like true crime movies. I love true crime. I watch documentaries all day. Jack the Ripper is probably my favorite. But, like, I haven't really been able to get into the actual movies. Mm-hmm. So I think if I had to pick one, I would definitely pick My Friend Dahmer, like I mentioned in the last one. Like, I really enjoyed that one. The acting was great. And so when I actually went into that, though, I thought it was going to be a lot more like brutal, and that it was going to be, I guess, more disturbing. And it's disturbing in its own right. But, oh, there we go. It definitely really kind of humanizes the dude. And it was based on a book or like a graphic novel that was written by someone who went to high school with him.
Yeah, it was a graphic novel.
Yeah.
Dahmer was, or
My Friend Dahmer.
Okay.
Yeah.
The story, My Friend Dahmer.
Got it.
It was like the guy that went to high school with him wrote it.
When you say graphic novel, I think like manga, and now I think like of like My Friend Dahmer and like a super over exaggerated manga.
Like, Jeffrey Dahmer in the hallway. Like,
and this is My Friend Dahmer, and a giant robot just walks up.
Jeffrey Senpai.
Jesus.
But yeah, out of all the ones that I've seen, that one was probably. And given the only con about it for me is we really don't know how accurate that story is, because it is like a hearsay story. So the person that wrote it is sitting there saying like, "Oh yeah, this was totally accurate." But we all remember things differently.
Right.
We all have selective memories, and who knows if he was just trying, I don't want to say getting attention, but trying to sensationalize things.
Right.
So that would be my only con with it. The acting's great. The way they ended it was awesome. I mean, don't want to like spoil anything, but they end it like before, when he picks up his first victim, and like.
Well, and I mean, to be fair, to credit to your what you're talking about, it is really mostly about how everything happened before he finally switched. Any of that switch in his head finally churned, and he went super psychotic.
Mm-hmm. And so that was like a super interesting take on it. Like I said, the accuracy could be debatable, because as his friend, he doesn't really know everything that was going on at home, or what Jeffrey Dahmer's thoughts were. Yeah. Like, he wasn't in his head. But that was a good one. I really enjoyed that. There's really no blood in it at all, so 0 out of 5.
0 out of 5. Yeah. Well, I mean, talk about like a lot of horror to check out. Talk about like everything from like as calm and collected as My Friend Dahmer, to somewhere in the middle with Citizen X, to over the top blood being spewed out of hands because someone's nailed to a cross over with Wolf Creek. I mean, these are the movies we were telling you, Ghouls and Gals and Creeps and Mutants, to check out. We only find movies that we feel deserve that love, that attention, and deserve a little more spotlight. So, with that being said, if you're liking what we're doing and you want to be caught up with everything we're doing, please like us and follow us on our Facebook. Search us up, Punk Rock Horror Podcast, or on our Twitter @official PRHP, or
on Instagram, Punk Rock Horror Podcast, #PRHP Podcast.
If you want, you can always follow me as well.
It was just spaced out there.
Cody. Hey. You can always follow me at The Undead Matt. If you want to consider supporting the show, please go to our patreon.com/punkrockhorrorpodcast. Punk Rock Horror Podcast. If you don't, and if you just want to buy some merch from us, you can see the links to that below for our Teespring account. We are actually talking about switching to distributors, just because we've had some very legitimate complaints about some of the merch that has come from there. We will still, if you do still order merch from us, and you message us if there's any problems with it, we'll take care of it. We'll figure it out, no problem. But we'll let you know when we make that switch. With that being said, thank you again, everyone, for coming out to this live show. First, to our audience. Thank you, guys. I know that was like a lot of info to take in. We appreciate this immensely. We will be doing more shows in the future, so we hope to see a lot of your faces again come out. And thank you, Ghouls and Gals, Creeps and Mutants, every just twisted horror fanatic alike, tuning in every other week, listening to us, tell you why you should watch horror movies and why you should love horror and why you should always be proud to be a horror nerd. With that being said, I think we can close out this show.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, we got one more thing from our Paranormal Princess.
Follow me on Instagram. Paranormal Princess 7.
Paranormal Princess 7. And check out the Paranormal Princess podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Erin is coming in once a month to give her take on the paranormal and subjects that are within that context. She's got a great format. We love the fact that she's jumped on part of the crew. She's bringing a very cool world view that we don't know much about, because she is a serious paranormal investigator and brings a lot of cool insight to that. So thank you again, everyone. Ghost. And Ghost. And podcast over.
Podcast over.
Bye.
Oh, I got to pee so bad.